Donald Trump has just given a clear deadline of 10 days for sanctions. We're going to talk about what that means, but this is the closest Trump has given to boxing himself into actually doing something since this whole thing started. Now, I've talked about this again and again. Trump has mostly zigged. I have the zigzag theory, mostly zigged toward Russia. Here he zagged a little bit. He's given provided the weapons through NATO that Europeans are paying for Ukraine. That was a zag. And then he also said that he was going to do this thing about sanctions. And I don't know how powerful or how strong the sanctions will be or anything along those lines. But that's a change in tone that we saw about a few weeks ago, and then it really sharply changed, and we've seen more and more of it over the last week. It seems like he's gotten the message that Putin is not interested in actually doing anything. And Putin and his surrogates are saying that today. So let's look at this and see where we are today. I'm going to show you the audio of this. Trump announces new Russian deadline, 10 days. That's 10 firm days. Today is July 29th from today. Kyiv Post, Trump cuts Russia's deadline to 10 days. Putin wants to keep the war going. Our tariffs might affect Russia. They might not, but they have 10 days. Now, people are looking at the might not as, oh, he's not going to do anything. He's just hedging his bets. I don't know what he's doing, but it's pretty clear what he's saying here. So to backtrack from it is going to be harder. Doesn't mean he won't do it. Doesn't mean he can't do it, but this is what he said. Okay, Trump just announced a new deadline for Russia. 10 days from today, we're going to put on some tariffs and stuff. I don't know if it will affect Russia. And Republicans against Trump were saying, what a joke, as a commentary. Okay, well, let's actually listen to what he has to say and see what you think.
Mr. President, yesterday you mentioned that you would change the Russia deadline to 10 to 12 days. Has that started yet, or when can we see the official statement?
That's a good question from the journalist. Has that started yet? Okay, let's listen.
I'll tell you what, I'll give it to you now. Do you want a big scoop?
Yes, please.
Everybody else, close your ears, okay? You ready?
I'm ready.
10 days from today.
Got it.
Okay?
Got it.
Good.
Have you communicated?
We have a scoop. And then, we're going to put on tariffs and stuff, and I don't know if it's going to affect Russia, because he wants to obviously probably keep the war going. But we're going to put on tariffs and the various things that you put on. It may or may not affect them, but it could.
It may or may not affect them, but it could. Now, you can read this multiple ways. The weakest interpretation is he's not going to do anything. He's going to back off. He's not going to allow the tariffs or the sanctions, and may or not affect it. Okay, that's one side. A stronger view of this might be that it may or may not affect him, means that the sanctions are secondary sanctions that are going to be applied to China and India and whoever else is taking this oil from Russia. And now, it's an open debate whether he actually will be willing to do this to China and to India and to whoever else is taking up oil from Russia. If you don't think that that's going to happen, I understand. If you think that that's going to happen, why would that happen? Well, because he kind of likes having this leverage of sanctions on China and maybe even India and whoever else. Like, look what just happened with the EU working out that deal. So these two things, there's a confluence. It's a flowing together of both the tariff thing for him, which I think is terrible, but he's doing, and the war in Ukraine and putting pressure on Putin. So I think that's where we are. I think he may actually do something given 10 days, but I don't know. He's tricked us before, so we'll see how that works in the future. Okay, so let's look at this. Zelensky just came out and said today there was an extremely significant statement by President Trump. And it's true of Russia, who is doing everything to undermine peace efforts and drags out the war. Okay. And then he said this: Russia factors in the sanctions, factors in such losses. So it may not have an impact on Russia with, recognizing that sanctions aren't going to really move them. Okay. But Zelensky's thinking that this is a good idea. How about the Russians? Well, we'll see. As a response to Lindsey Graham's comment from yesterday, to those in Russia who believe that President Trump is serious about ending the bloodbath, is not serious about ending the bloodbath between Russia and Ukraine, you and your customers will soon be sadly mistaken. So when you say customers, he means people buying the oil like China. You will also see that Joe Biden is no longer president. Get to the peace table. Okay. And then the reply to that was from Medvedev. It's not for you or Trump to dictate when to get to the peace table. Negotiations will end when all the objectives of our military operation have been achieved. Work on America first, Gramps. Okay. So the Russians aren't happy about this. And for a good reason. So we'll see what happens in 10 days. But, and I get it. If you are skeptical about this, I totally get it. No problem. But I'm just reporting what he said and what should happen, relatively speaking, what should happen directly based on his words. Whether it materialize is too soon to tell. Okay, Che Bows. Whoever is advising President Trump on Russia needs to be fired fast. Russia and China are superpowers, and superpowers that can't and will not be bullied. Bring in Mearsheimer, bring in Sachs, bring in Tulsi, and bring in Tucker, people who actually love America. Okay, so what he's saying is bring in all the people that were pro-Russia. So, okay. And then there's this. This was the Steve Rosenberg reads the Russian newspapers each day and highlights certain things. What he highlighted was astonishing. And this was before Trump said the 10 days. He said 10 to 12 days yesterday. And here he is saying 10 days. So let's listen to this. Okay. Judging from today's Russian papers, it doesn't sound like Donald Trump's reduced deadline will persuade Moscow to end the war in Ukraine. Quote, the ultimatum was not taken seriously. Let's listen to this. Here we are. And this came out before he clarified 10 days, not 10 to 12.
So President Trump has reduced his 50-day deadline for President Putin to stop Russia's war in Ukraine. He's cut that to 10 to 12 days. Otherwise, Russia may face more sanctions, Russia's trading partners, secondary tariffs. Komsomolskaya Pravda accuses Donald Trump of having a primitive picture of events in Ukraine. On the original 50-day ultimatum, the paper says no one in Russia was going to accept the Americans' ultimatum. It would be naive to think Moscow would halt its advance in the new territories that are now part of Russia until their complete liberation.
Yeah, Russia isn't stopping. They're not going anywhere. Let's be honest about that.
By new territories, the paper means Ukrainian regions seized and occupied by Russia, which Moscow claims to have annexed. Donald's cavalry...
They have zero appetite to stop. And the sanctions could cut off partners, and that's important. But I don't think they have any real significant appetite to stop. And they keep telling us that, and it's like we're ignoring it. So the sanctions would be, let's say the sanctions are applied. It'll be a good thing. It'll help make the economy worse, but it's not going to end anything, even if we get to the point where Trump actually will apply them. So we'll see how that works.
Charges are not understood by and cause irritation among many in the world. His concept of peace through strength may be suitable for resolving regional conflicts of lesser importance and intensity. But applying such a strategy to Russia, or say to China, can lead to the horrific world war that Donald himself wishes to avoid.
That's not going to do it. That's saber rattling because you're scared. But again, look, this is the playbook, and it's been the playbook. What I'm showing you here is a cartoon about Russia and Finland. Aha, villain trying to attack me, eh? Says Russia with a bullwhip, and he's grabbing some small woman. And this cartoon was from I don't know, the Finland-Russia war, like before the World War. Yeah, I mean, this is the playbook, so they're not going anywhere. Gary Kasparov put this out, tick, tick, tick. Only Trump can save Putin, but now is the time to throw in him an anvil, not another life preserver. Absolutely. General Petraeus, who commanded the U.S. and coalition forces in Iraq and Afghanistan, said a ceasefire in Ukraine is unlikely until Western aid allows Kyiv to dramatically shift the battlefield dynamic. So you need two things. The sanctions will help grind the Russian economy down some if it actually works, because if the Chinese and the Iranians and the Indians and whoever else stops buying the oil, that will make a dent into the economy. But you really need the military aid primarily in order to change the dynamic. Okay, next big story. It's weird for me to find myself agreeing with someone like Pelosi, but she's spot on here. Donald Trump just decided to deny permission to President Lai to visit New York. This is the president of Taiwan. It shows that the United States can be bullied by Beijing into silence on Taiwan. This is a victory for Xi, and let's hope that it's not indicative of a dangerous change in U.S. policy. Well, I mean, clearly I'm lined up on that side of the fence of like this. No, let him come to the country. Republicans against Trump also are on that same side. So finally, we're seeing some places where we're on the same page. Donald Trump's administration has denied permission for Taiwan's president to visit New York en route to Central America after China raised objections with Washington about the visit. That's according to the Financial Times. And, you know, I really I envy the British, for example, who, like, whether you're a conservative Tory government or a liberal or Labor, you all support Ukraine. There was a senator in 1947 at the start of the Cold War. Senator Vandenberg became chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, asserting that we must stop partisan politics at the water's edge. He cooperated with the Truman administration in forging bipartisan support for and forging bipartisan support, rather, for the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan, and NATO. That's right. Partisan politics must stop at the water's edge. It's not something we should be bickering about or making hay with for political points here. We should be united against what is a good foreign policy for the United States. And foreign policy would be to stop World War III by, say, supporting Ukraine and stopping China from doing what it might do to Taiwan. Okay, let's turn to our next big story. Work or fight. German politicians call an end to benefits for draft-age Ukrainian men. It sounds harsh, but I think that's a fair policy. Like, if you weren't getting social benefits, okay, I get it. But if you are getting social benefits to the tune of $1.3 billion annually, the German people have been really good to Ukraine. They shouldn't be bearing this burden, in my estimation. This is the problem that Americans have with immigration in the United States. If people were just coming in, that's one thing. If they're getting social benefits for coming in, just for coming in, and Americans are paying for that, it's the same kind of thing here. Politicians from the Christian Social Union are pushing to cut social benefits for over 150,000 Ukrainian men of military age currently residing in Germany. Look, they should go back to Ukraine and take care of their own country. But if they're there working, they shouldn't, like, if they're not doing that, if they're still here for whatever reason, they should be working. I mean, I don't want to sound unsympathetic, but work. According to okay, I get it. There could be a carve out if you have children or something along these lines, and you have to take care of the children. You're like a single dad or something, but okay. So I understand why they're saying that. If nearly 151,000 Ukrainians of conscription age are receiving support here, something's clearly wrong. They should either be working in Germany or serving in Ukraine. It sounds reasonable to me, but I don't know what I'm missing. Tell me what I'm missing in the comments below if I am. As of 2025, half of them were registered as recipients of basic assistance, €882 per month, including housing and essential needs. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me, but I don't know what I don't know, so tell me. Okay, meanwhile, in the EU says Ukraine could join its Iris Squared satellite network as an alternative to Starlink. They really ought to be connected in some way so that if something happens with Starlink, they're ready. Norway is in talks. Iceland has joined, but Ukraine has not started negotiations yet. Whether it's this or something else, they really do need a backup plan to Starlink. Okay. Also in Europe, earlier, authorities revealed that a case of Colombian national was allegedly recruited by Moscow to carry out an arson attack on a shopping center in Poland. Now, I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but first, 32 people detained in Poland for suspected espionage for Russia. Poland's Prime Minister Tusk has announced a total of 32 individuals have been detained in the country on suspicion of cooperating with Russian intelligence services. Yeah, so Russia just keeps doing this hybrid war thing, and they're going to keep doing this hybrid war. Here's the arson stuff. Russia ordered arson attacks in Poland using a Colombian national. According to Polish intelligence, this Colombian citizen was recruited by Russian intelligence to carry out arson attacks in shopping malls. He's already been detained and charged with preparing a tea attack. He has previously set fire to facilities in the Czech Republic as well. Again, this is Russia putting them up to this. Warsaw sees this as a direct threat to national security. Russia continues its hybrid warfare in Eastern Europe. And I mean, that is what it is. It's hybrid warfare. Okay. Meanwhile, the Russians are blessing whatever they're doing to the Ukrainians in the Russian Orthodox Church. electronic warfare, but make it holy. In Russia, priests of the Russian Orthodox Church, read FSB agents, are ringing a special church bell said to jam Ukrainian drones. I'm not sure how magically they're going to make that happen, but again, this is one of the hardships that Ukraine has with the Russian Orthodox Church. Okay, last little bit by Darth Putin. The Russian army is now much more efficient. What used to take 3 weeks can now be done in under 7 days. What are we talking about? This guy from Russia, he signed a contract on April 7th, 2025. He died on April 13th, 2025. So he's from the city of Guy in Orenburg region, and he died in this special operations zone. Vitaly signed a contract with the Ministry of Defense 1 week from the time that he died. Just incredible rate of casualties in Russia. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for you right now. Tell me what you think about this, about what Trump was doing, whether Trump will follow through. I mean, we want him to follow through, right? I mean, we don't just hate Trump so much that we don't want him to follow through. We do want him to follow through. The question is, will he? And if you're skeptical about it, I understand. I tend to think that he will do something here. I don't tend to think that it's going to be enough to cause anything meaningfully to happen. That's just my read, but I could be wrong. That's just my speculation, and I make it very clear when I'm showing you something that's clearly facts and my speculation. All right, thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.